26th. I note that we have a quorum and I will call the meeting to order. The first order of business is the approval of the minutes from January 15th, which I distributed and also have posted online. Is there any corrections or? I have one, and that is at the very top, it says 4:30 ON, at least on my version, so we make that PM. With that correction, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Was there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Next order of business is a debrief of our commercial development forum, which we have on the 29th. Thanks to all of you that could attend. That was a pretty good attendance. I don't know the actual number, but I would say there are maybe 40 people in the room and
25
25
online? Yeah.
online, something like that.
I think that's a pretty good turn.
That was a great turnout.
I thought Hannah did a good job. There were good questions from the audience. So I thought it was worthwhile. Do you have any?
A lot of people thought it was really substantive with some of the feedback I got. Pretty inspiring. Folks really liked kind of digging into some of those industry specific conversations. And folks, a lot of people were like, when are we gonna do that again? Or some version of that. So maybe we could include that in a little bit of the conversation today if you
Yeah.
want to do that.
I thought it was, we sent around
Little summary.
a summary of a whole bunch of, but at the start of it was your interviews, your street interviews. I thought they were interesting. Did anyone else watch them? I mean, the first person said, well, I don't even think about it, you know? And it led all the way to, it just seemed like there was a lot of either neutral or negative connotations to it, the fear of it. Of the, you know, like the business community somehow is gonna destroy the nature of the town. And I think that's a huge hurdle to get over and calm people's, as, you know, been here a long, about 350 years now. We haven't had too much go awry. But there seems to be a lack of faith that the business community could without a lot of restraints be valuable to the rest of the citizens. It was, your interviews just struck me as like, whoo.
Maybe what is the community's response to this committee's recommendations in the FinCom's recommendations that diversifying the tax base needs to be a top priority at MCI?
Well, I think you saw in the interviews that wasn't really part of what people brought up. I've heard that in other places where there's been sort of a desire. When people are talking about finances, they're saying more commercial development. When you just ask them about commercial development, they're reticent. So there's kind of a disconnect is what I'm seeing.
So is the challenge that commercial development's being talked about as in a broad topic, as opposed to let's bring commercial development to particular parcels?
I haven't heard any specific things, you know, other than like MCI or some of the big groups that folks are talking about. I think overall, I'm hearing when folks talk about commercial development, it's in the abstract. It's not sort of like we should have, or it should be, we should have more restaurants, but like super vague, not like, oh, this would be a good place for a restaurant. And the other conversations have been a little bit like, so bringing up our warrant articles and things like that, the folks have been reluctant to ease any of the regulations that might make it easier for commercial development. Again, that disconnect I'm hearing overall.
So I guess the only point is that, you know, it seems to me that MCI, potentially Peabody, potentially 2229 Main are the spots where there's sort of a green field of opportunity. So maybe we should try to focus the conversation. You know, if people are against diversifying the tax base, that's fine. But it seems to me that there needs to be a specific conversation about reasonable development at those parcels.
Oh, what have you been hearing? From that community?
So, well, my audience is completely different than yours. My audience is more financially oriented people who say, you know, FinCom EDC is correct. we need to make sure it's a top priority. So diversification of tax base is more important than affordable housing, is more important than green space. That's the way the business community, I think, is thinking about. And the people who sort of are more sensitive to, candidly, Concord's finances, as far as how much it wants to spend and how it's gonna raise revenue to allocate some of that, to pay for some of that spending. I just don't see another, for me, it's a very sort of binary equation. And for people who don't wanna see commercial development, then the question is, okay, but how do you think, the community is gonna pay for $370 million of capital spending over 10 years? How do you think that the divide that's happening as far as, taxes going up is gonna be in any way controlled? Unless people have really good ideas as to how to significantly curb town spending, which I haven't heard. So it's, I think we just need to, and I think this group in particular needs to think about, not only commercial development, but how commercial development can most effectively, help the town pay for some of the spending it anticipates.
That's the thing that for me was missing. It was commercial development without the context of why we might want it. What would we do with it if it got here and that kind of stuff. So I thought it was people had reactions like you said. They asked me about commercial. Yeah, more. We get some more restaurants and the clothing store which sells, okay clothes and stuff. That'd really be good. But the reality is, there's gonna be huge development here. I mean, whether we sort of like it or not, given that MCI parcel, something is going to happen there. And it seems to me our obligation is to continue to make people aware of that and continue to ask the question, why do we want this? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I was just today over in Maynard, meeting with the Maynard town administrator and planning people. Linda was with me and so was Mary. We were all looking at Maynard Crossing. Maynard Crossing is a 58-acre old deck facility that was taken down and developed. And we went over there to hear about how they did it and what it did for the town and what issues they had. And it's interesting because I forget exactly what MCI is, but that's in the neighborhood.
60 acres.
Yeah, in the neighborhood of what that's like. So it seems to me, whether we agree completely with Mark or not, our obligation is to get people to understand that this is gonna happen. What do we want to accomplish with it aside from having buildings around that people go, what's the role that development plays in the future of Concord? And it can be, people can have other answers than Mark, but diversifying the tax base is certainly a critically important one. Affordable housing, people would argue is really important, whatever they want to argue, but.
Well, I think it's more nuanced too, and that's not just bringing potentially more restaurants or more clothing stores. I think it's really, you have a 54-acre opportunity to bring in maybe a college, maybe, some over 55 housing, maybe some retail, maybe some warehousing, maybe you got a lot of room. And I don't think it's going to be one solution is going to solve it. I think it's a mixture, and it's how do you, sort of put that mixture together. And we don't know, by the way, the people in here and people on the phone have no idea. So it's really, how do we get RFPs from the business, sort of the community, brokers, potential business people to come in and say, well, we'd like to do X, Y, and Z, and then for us to aggregate that to make the puzzle fit. But I don't think it's gonna be all housing. I don't think it's gonna be all retail. I think it's a smart mixture. And how do we accomplish that smart mixture?
There is quite a bit of residential facility there. And we leased two of the places for a couple of years for the Jamaicans. But then there are also restaurants, and both of those things, I think, are negative on the tax rate, maybe on the basis on the town budget. in terms of producing revenue. I don't know whether that analysis been done for the whole project or not.
I know that that's part of the scope of work for the new consultants that are working with the committee. Chris LaFrance, I know that you were there and your background's in real estate. What was some of your impressions?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be key to going forward, as you know, as was mentioned, breaking down that barrier and that reluctance from the community perspective. And so I think having more forums like this, you know, maybe spinning off on a similar subject, focusing on types of uses that we all want to see, that kind of thing. Anything to kind of break that barrier down and remove that fear factor. But I think if there's any way to kind of, you know, to Mark's point, to kind of aggregate the public sentiment in terms of what we think were some good ideas and we can design, and that'll help us kind of gauge what kind of RFPs to go after or how to write the RFP, you know. But I thought it was very helpful overall.
Well, I don't know, well, I think that's what I was trying, the development versus redevelopment. Redevelopment kind of will give you a little bit maybe extra money, but new development's gonna give you real money that we don't have now. But I just got looking it up on my phone, an email today from the Greater Boston Real Estate Board. And the government, the State House, especially the governor's office, has been pushing, it's called Unlocking Housing Production Commission, has come up with some recommendations to basically remove single-family zoning, eliminate parking minimums, and curbing minimum lot size requirements for residential, and all to get, like in the city of Cambridge, 3,500 new apartments in 10 years. And I think if we have our zoning go and we get that much development here, that's gonna just, I would assume, cause real problems with school expenses. And we're gonna have to find the money somewhere else, because if we're building 2-bedroom apartments where there's no revenue coming in that's positive from those. So it's kind of, we're in a real quagmire here, especially Concord having its fiscal condition the way it is right now, seemingly pushing to the end of the envelope. We better think seriously about MCI making money from these sites. And I am discouraged, I'm not diminishing any of the people who are involved, but I'm discouraged that we don't have the inventive nature of the human being put into this meeting. Why aren't we asking businesses to propose plans for those sites versus a group all well-meaning, but I don't know. It bothers me that we're gonna come up with something that may not give us. What's our goal with that site? Is our goal to offset the expenses we expect to have in increased housing?
My question is,
If that
why
is,
do we want to develop?
we've got to state that goal and say, look, we're trying to maximize revenue here, or no. And if we're doing neutral revenue, I'd much prefer to see it as open land I can walk my dog on.
That does feel like that's the number one thing. It's like, okay, and if we're looking for revenue, what's that dollar amount? What's our target? Like, are we looking for 100 million annually in tax revenues? Is that the measure that we're looking for? Are we looking for a certain number of jobs?
But I think the private sector will give you that answer if you flip that problem in front of them.
I can give you the answer to that. $100 million annually doesn't.
100 million.
To that point though, I mean, I think that,
Well, that's what Mark had just
you
said.
know,
Even I. No, yeah.
You folks talking about net revenue or gross?
right, I think Steve just hit on the key topic, and that is, you know, the furthest extreme is literally the Amazon warehouse. Doesn't use schools, doesn't pick up trash, no, it's just way over here. Way over here is the 3 or 4 bedroom apartment where the kids are, you know, going to the schools, what have you. And I think the consultant should be bright enough to run models to say, under these scenarios, this is the net number. And the more you go to sort of the infrastructure of warehousing and office, what have you, this is the scale. And I think it would be somewhat unfair or inappropriate to go to town meeting with any sort of warrant article that doesn't give taxpayers a real idea that sort of breaks out, you know, so I don't think we ever want anyone surprised to say, oh, I didn't know affordable housing will cost the taxpayer X dollars.
I think that would be a good guidance to give the consultant.
Just as a point of reference, I think Mary and Linda, correct me if I get these wrong, but I think I asked them today, their tax revenue in Maynard is $40 million. And the revenue, they're not fully leased up yet at this place, but when they fully lease it up, it's gonna be about $3 million in taxes annually.
That's what I read, but I also read that most, the larger portion of that was from actually housing.
The town,
The town budget's 40
40
million.
million.
And
and
little
this
less than
development would give, when it's fully leased up, would give them $3 million annual revenue.
Maynard's budget's 40.
and how, and what is the expense of the,
Ours is 140.
Oh, this is Concord.
All right, hold on.
Have they factored in the
There's some
housing?
folks on the Zoom that are trying to chime in. So,
Yeah, I don't wanna get too down the rabbit hole of Maynard, but there's like a couple hundred units of housing.
right,
A market basket, a couple restaurants.
oh, yeah.
Locally kind of shops, you know, gyms and stuff like that.
but Linda wanted to chime in.
Linda,
Oh, I was just pointing out that, of that 3 million, about 2/3 was coming from the housing component. Which it improves their ratio, because they said 90% of their town revenues were from residential. So, it helps, but it doesn't completely solve the issue. I don't know, the RFP, has been issued, and we have retained a consulting group to work with the town and the state regarding MCI Concord. And one of the components will be a financial analysis of any of the visioning and projects that are discussed. So that, and the state is very acutely aware of the fact that whatever is proposed needs to be financially viable. So I think that is being built into the process, and I just wanted to make everyone aware that all of the meetings for MCI Concord are public, and the RFP is public, and that you can follow along, you know, the development of the project and hear what is said about the financial components of it. But that's been from the start one of the key factors we're focused on as the committee, and obviously the town and the state. So it hasn't escaped us at this point. And I'm sure we'll be looking more to this committee for input on that.
thank you, Linda. Mark,
Linda, did you, at the plan board level, did you guys run any sort of financial models? I'm thinking specifically on the 240Bs, so look at Novo. And you know, is there a way to calculate with a range of certainty what the cost is for extra fire, extra police, extra classrooms, if you will? I know that the whole school capacity issue is debatable, but does that, when, if you guys don't run it, I suspect the answer is you didn't. When is the time that the town runs those models to figure out, you know, the project makes sense from any sorts of factors, including the sheer tax the building owner will pay to the town?
Well, first of all, the planning board doesn't have purview over the 40Bs. Those go through the zoning board of appeal. And we really don't have purview over the financial aspects of the project. Again, it's really a very different process because it's a state mandate and sort of state-run process. So we didn't do that, but that's because it wasn't our responsibility on the planning board. And really it lies at the level of the state to go through that.
So, Lynn, were you on the planning board when the Muse passed? And my question is, probably not, but what analysis did we do at what level, ZBA, planning board, or the town, that sort of right-sized or did some sort of analysis as to whether the Muse made sense from a whole host of factors, including taxes paid, you know,
40B.
Right.
no.
Right. Applicants that go through the planning board are often are required generally to provide an economic analysis. They do use information from the town in terms of costs per household. I don't know that they separate that out between a 6,000 square foot house or a, 2-bedroom apartment. So they do get help to some extent. The information is provided in terms of the average cost per household for services in town. And then they provide, if it's a subdivision, some tally of the number of units and the potential number of students that could be going and so on. It's pretty much straightforward, and I wouldn't say it's a high level of sophistication, but that's what we do see on normal applications, but not for 40Bs.
Any other comments? We're kind of gone pretty wide on this one, but any other comments on the development forum? And if you have any thoughts about what the follow-up activity should be, I'm pretty convinced that we should try to take the lead instead of keeping this issue moving ahead. I just don't have quite the right sense of what would chapter 2 look like, but.
So I think, I know it was a couple of months ago, but I think that the EVC letter to the MCI committee and select board focused on diversification as well as sort capacity in infrastructure constraints. So maybe we could stick to that theme, because I think it runs, through the majority of some of the issues we're talking about.
The part of the forum that got me really excited was talking about some of the green tech and the cluster that's kind of growing or nascent in West Concord. And that might be, I think sometimes folks think of industrial in the old way. Right. So we might want to lean in a little bit, and then we could, showcase some of the individual businesses that are here. That's another idea to go in.
Yeah, I thought along similarly, education, like what can this committee provide for education? So that you can use Maynard, if that's an example of a use that we like, or we'd like to consider a mixed use. Like, I think people
need a case study,
like a case study. I really think people need that, at least the general public that are not maybe, in real estate or aren't thinking that way. When you're trying to convince a greater community, if they don't know enough, I feel like there's a reason for us to maybe help that.
You have your hand up.
Sven,
Yeah, hi, Sven Weber, Public Works Commission, but speaking on my own behalf. So I think Mark has a good point, and the town needs data. Specifically, we need to catch up as a town, and we need to understand which businesses and which development brings kind of how much tax revenue in addition to what we have today, and then probably need to rank these things. I don't know your charter, but I would normally, as an initial reaction, think the Economic Vitality Committee is a place to make the analysis and look is what kind of businesses make sense here, what kind of revenue would they generate for the town, and give the town and the select board and the planning board and everyone kind of the data and the guidance here. So my initial reaction to Mark's question is yes, dig it up, prepare something, and bring it to the respective people.
Well, along that line, I will tell you that today, when we were visiting in Maynard, there was a position paper that was developed and presented to the select board and the planning board from the equivalent to this committee. I think it's called the Economic Development Committee, not Vitality. So perhaps that's a direction.
Yeah, I don't, you know, I don't think we should be reinventing the wheel, like, I mean, there's nothing novel, we're not sending the shuttle to space. And so I think that, you know, the question I have, typically for a lot of the projects where there have been huge redevelopments, you know, when the state, when DCAM has gotten involved, is where the successes, where the ones that didn't come out so great, and let's work with the ones that did well, and then hopefully improve those for Concord. You know, the only follow-on thing I'll say to Sven's comments is, I agree with you, thank you. But we don't have a staff, it is hard to generate data. And other than making recommendations, and it seems to me like the MCI committee would be the perfect committee to have RFPs and make sure those RFPs go out to developers, go out to brokers, go out to whomever to sort of aggregate that data. And again, if we don't reinvent the wheel, I think we'll be just fine.
But don't you have Mimi as staff?
Say again, Sven?
But you have staff sitting there, Mimi from the town. Isn't she Economic Vitality Director?
I did do a set of case studies of areas that are about 50 acres and looked at the mix of the types of uses that are there, breaking it down by commercial, residential. So if that's a report that the committee, you know, wants to go for.
Why don't you resurface that again and send it? That was quite a while ago, as I recall.
Yeah.
The other thing that might be instructive is, yes, Mary.
Can I make a comment? Today, one of the things that I learned when we went to Maynard Crossing was that the people in Maynard were already very aware that they needed commercial revenue in order to avoid some of their big capital expenditures that were coming down. So they had kind of a leg up on Concord. I don't think Concord is aware of that really. I mean, some of them are, Mark, to your point, the business community is, but I don't think in general people are aware. And a position paper might be exactly where we document that so that we have something to pull out and say, this is what we're facing. Here are some of the opportunities that we have from various forms of commercial development. And that was another thing that we got, I thought, from the conversation with the people in Maynard was that when they went to meetings and they heard people's concerns, if they had some document or some position paper that they could pull out and used, it helped move the conversation along so we didn't get stuck all the time in the same place. So I think, and I tried to say this at the economic forum, we need to do some PR in Concord as far as letting people know the value of commercial development. I mean, we agree here. I know MCI wants to make that net revenue positive, but I'm not sure the general population feels that way. And I think a position paper would go a long way in making that happen. So it's an idea.
I think one of the challenges is a little bit about what the trade-offs are. So, you know, you could look at the John Hancock building and there's a lot of tax revenue from that building, but I don't see Concord, it's not gonna be building a 30-story building. So what are some of the trade-offs in terms of massing of the building, amount of parking, easement, your density? And I felt like that was what we were trying to get to a little bit at the forum of like going back to like, what's the appetite? I think we haven't quite figured that out yet.
Could I let me just make a quick suggestion? I think I think what they were looking at is how much revenue can we generate from this, from, you know, how much tax revenue are we going to generate from this particular development or this particular, is it a grocery store? Is it senior housing, whatever? What do we anticipate would be the level of services that we would need? Okay, and the net is what the town gets. And that's in addition to the building permit revenue we get at the beginning and the new growth. So it's not a hard thing to put together. It's just putting it together and having it as something that you can put out there so people can, you know, so that it frames the conversation and hopefully ends not ends the conversation, but has something to bound it.
Like just one comment, and I think that, I think at some point, there's gonna be a clash or a conflict or maybe a difficult conversation with the state. And I think at some point, we, the town of Concord, are gonna have to say, this is what we'd like. What do you think? And I don't think we can have that conversation or be prepared to have it until we have some real models and some real sort of ideas that are concrete. And I think that we can share those same set of best ideas with the voters as well, and sort of start, you know, sort of educating people. But I thought, my understanding of the MCI committee was gonna do is exactly do that. Solicit invitations for proposals to show the pie chart of X% housing, X% retail, X% industrial, and this is what it could look like.
And what it would cost.
Yeah.
Right.
Services.
Mary,
Yes,
I-
Yes,
the
but-
thoughts you just expressed, would they be prevalent among the select board, do you think?
what? Which one, Steve? The fact that it has to be net revenue positive?
Yeah,
Yes, I believe so.
I wonder if the select board would be a good place to launch a paper on that.
Well, I think it would either be the finance committee or the economic vitality committee, really. I mean, we've got a very broad purview. I think we would support that. We would probably, well, I think we think that revenue generation is one of our top priorities. But I see it as not really the work that we should be doing. I'm looking, I mean, we impanel other boards to take a deeper dive. That's what the select board does. We set up other boards, and one of the reasons we set up the Economic Vitality Committee was for that reason.
Maybe we're gonna get together and, I think a position paper of some kind coming out of this committee would be a good thing.
I think that's, something like that can also be used. I don't think the state is gonna be too enamored with the position of initially with the town saying, we wanna make money on this. I just don't think the state's gonna say, oh, that's a hell of an idea. So I think you're gonna have some really good, and say, and one of our main goals, I don't think we can start with it as being the pinnacle goal, because I think the state's just gonna say that, we're not giving it, this is not a revenue maker for you guys.
I'm sorry, I disagree. I disagree. I think the state is listening to us and saying that they do understand that we want this to be net rev. We're getting no pushback from that. But also, I also want to bring up the fact that we're talking about more than MCI. We're also talking about 2229 Main, the Peabody School building. We've got a parcel available on 91B. So there's a lot more land in play here that's going to face these same issues, which is, do we want these to be net revenue positive? And a position paper we could pull that out for every single one of these parcels when we come to what do we want to do there? So it's more than just MCI. And I really think that the state is on board with our goals to make it net revenue positive.
Yes, I would agree. And I think given the fact that we have a pretty fast track we just had our kickoff meeting this week in terms of the MCI Concord project, and I'm hoping that will be we should have a report out, be reporting out not only continuously, but by June 30th, in terms of what the consultants are working on. And I think it will be, hopefully a good, project, or, in terms of seeing if we can generate that kind of economic analysis, and how it can be done through this consulting process. So I think it's going to kind of be unfolding before our eyes for the next couple of months. So in terms of your timing, I think developing a position paper in parallel or reflecting this may be informative.
Let's see if we can get that process started, American President. All right, thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is warrant article. The planning board advanced both of our warrant articles, parking and accessory use. So they will be on the warrant. They have not taken a position on them, and they won't. That's not unusual. They won't take a position until after the public hearings. They'll have on this, and then they'll take a position. What I would like to do is see if we can get somebody to take a position of being the point person on each of these two warrant articles to, one, develop a deck that we would use for I forgot when the planning board hearing is, but for the planning board hearing. And secondly, to sort of put together a small campaign, if you will, for how we would get the word out about what these warrant articles are about, why we think they're important. I think the accessory use one will probably not face a whole lot of opposition, although you never know, but the parking one likely will. So I think what we need to do is develop a plan for how we're gonna communicate these articles and their importance. Not just through the public hearing, but that formal viewpoint, but also, editorial and a bridge and a presentation of Harvey Wheeler. I don't know exactly what. So.
I'm available to help whoever wants to.
So what I'm looking for is somebody to get the lead point person on each of these two warrant articles. On all talking ones.
No, I mean, we gotta do it, guys.
Yeah, I know, we gotta do it.
So
Which one do you want?
accessory, be easy.
Yeah.
But I think it could be a cooperative with somebody else and we work them together.
Yeah, I mean, if you'll take the lead on that,
No, I understand.
pick a couple of other people on the committee to work with you on it and try to do it. Maybe I'm gonna ask.
I'm happy to help, Greg.
Great.
And Mimi will take the lead on parking and grab a couple people to help her with that.
Well, are Cato and Greg working together on the two articles, like the three of us
That's,
can work together?
when you, I don't know, it seems that,
Okay, what about the three of you doing both articles? Putting together the plan for both articles, does that seem reasonable, Cato?
Works for me.
Yeah.
So,
All right, already Mothers Out Front wants us to come and talk about the articles for a date in March, so I'll let you know.
yeah, that would be, one of the things you put together is where we're gonna go talk. Get a talking piece put together, so, Mark's gonna go talk to whomever, he's got this thing in front of him, this is the line points we wanna get across.
the warrant hasn't been published yet.
No, but the
No,
deadline.
it just closed last
We
week,
just closed last.
19th, I think is right. So, yeah, it won't be published for a while. All right, thank you very much. Next is business, or updates. Tiffany isn't here.
Well, I can report that the survey has gone out.
Yes.
We're actually getting some really good responses from business owners.
Good.
It's always hard when you widely distribute a survey, sometimes how many random, but we're getting exactly the types of folks that want to respond, and they're completing it fully, which is great. So I'm gonna do another push, and we've got the flyers that were going around individually to the businesses. I already did all of West Concord. And I'll be doing Concord Center shortly.
So, just a follow, so I mean, I apologize for, so what is a good response in your mind? And what are we trying to achieve with the survey? I forget.
So the goal is to kind of create a unique profile for each of the three business districts, so Concord Center, Thoreau Depot, and West Concord, to understand the particular customers that are already shopping there. That helps to determine what would be a good new business to fit, almost help us create like a customer profile. So shopping districts generally have like a particular approach. So it's you could say West Concord has got a lot of kind of regular businesses that people go to all the time. It's more of a neighborhood shopping. So people are dropping off the kids at the dance place, they get some food at Deborah's, they pick up their dry cleaners. Where Concord Center is a little bit more of a destination, it's more of when people come from elsewhere, you know, they're kind of the regional tourists are coming here. There is, you know, some regular shopping, but it's more of people come less frequently, but do bigger ticket items when they come, for example. So that will help that subgroup to figure out what would be another business that fits that profile. So when there's a vacancy, we can kind of have a bench of some particular tenants to bring in. So that you could say, okay, if it's a more that destination shopping for Concord Center, maybe we want another, maybe there might be, we had talked a little bit about like a high-end kitchen store, recognizing that Concord Center's got a combination of residents and visitors that are coming. So what are the businesses that straddle those two uses? In West Concord, there's a cluster of a lot of folks that have got middle schoolers. So what might be another one? So that might be a daycare center for some of the industrial spaces could work there. So the idea is to have a bench of particular of possible tenants that would come in, so we can build those relationships so that we don't have some of the long vacancies that we've got going on now.
Next, report from the tourism manager, is that where we are? Is that you?
Well, Cato was gonna talk about the communications.
Sorry, Cato.
That's okay. Mimi and I met last week before, briefly to discuss this partnership we're having with Minuteman Network about doing sort of business profiles, sort of little snippets on Minuteman Network. So we put together some sort of verticals, if you will, of different types of businesses in town. And we're meeting with them, on like the 24th or 18th, something like that, to sort of have our initial kickoff meeting. But the idea would be, you know, sort of these interviews with business owners and different types of industries in Concord, almost as a recruiting type tool as well. That sort of goes along with what we were talking about a little bit earlier. These are the types of businesses that are in Concord, the green tech space, you know, and others. So that's just sort of one of the things we were thinking about, or we're planning on doing with them. So I think it'll be interesting. And it'll be a little bit different than maybe like an article in the Bridge or something like that. So.
Are these video?
Yeah, these are videos.
Yeah, videos.
So we could post them on the website. They'll be on Minuteman Networks on their YouTube channel. I imagine depending on the type of business, some of it might be appropriate for Visit Concord. Some of those businesses could put it on their own website. We're hoping to also put it on social media. So the preliminary idea is to kind of put them in the can, like shoot a few of them at a time and then roll them out slowly. So then we can, you know, make it a big thing in the social media. You know, and I'll be talking to Donna with Tech who can hide that up.
Super. Sounds like a good project, yes.
Do we, how long have we had what we're gonna call, I guess, the economic vitality page or sub-page on the website?
I think I did it in September, so it's been a little bit.
So it probably hasn't been enough time, but you know, are there things working well? Are there improvements to make it better? Or should we wait a little bit?
So from what I understand, and part of why that project wasn't top of my list is that those sections in the town website don't get a lot of traffic to begin with. It's not a big way that the word gets out. My email newsletter has been really popular. I've got 630 people on the list, 54% open rate, which is significantly higher than the standard. People are clicking on it. I'm getting a lot of responses. So in terms of getting information to people, so the website's more better when I'm talking to a prospective business owner and I'm like, I send them the link and like, here's where you can get all the information for this. It's kind of a good repository, but random people aren't just going generally to seek it out.
So I'm just wondering though, like, you know, the EDC forum, are there ways to link that to get more traffic there? So for example, I was at a restaurant, I don't know, this weekend, and I was talking to a restaurant that had moved out of Concord, unfortunately. But I said, well, you know, we're redeveloping MCI. And it was sort of the light went off. And so I wonder if there's a combination of a little bit of a sales pitchy sort of, you know, have some BBC videos, have some concierge services like, hey, have some case studies to make it a more vibrant place where I think more people would go. Cause I think it, you know, the concierge aspect of it, as well as our efforts to make streamline Concord's regulations, I think are very attractive, you know, to a certain set of people.
I do see this video series as a little bit of a sales tactic also on how to get people to Concord and different types of businesses succeed here. So I think that'll help.
Great, thank you very much, Kato. Beth.
I have, if anybody wants these, we produced these for last week, just as a first pass of the April 19th events. We were open vacation week, so we have something, there will be a larger thing that we distribute for the 250 on April 19th itself. Yeah, 23 hours a day I'm spending on the 250 and 1 hour on other things, but I can tell you that, our visitation, our groups are up about 50% of bus travel is up, which is interesting. We're getting new bus companies coming through. Another thing that sort of we've been focused on is making more of our products accessible. So we just partnered with AARP for our second year of doing a webinar series of 4 topics that are through their community development page. And then I talked to MMTV about doing something similar on their YouTube page as well, to be able to take the content out, which does a few things. You know, one is it helps us send that message about Concord and its history out, but it also helps entice people to visit. But it's a way for us to provide a walking tour content without having to have somebody that is mobility friendly. So we're excited about that. And the online store has done the same thing for us. It's working, which is pretty cool. It is a revenue stream for the visitor center where, you know, postage and processing has been an uncharted territory. We've never done anything like that. So having an online shop, especially for the 250, is going great guns, and we're really pretty pleased with it. So on that, full steam ahead. There is another business meeting for the 250.
What's the date?
March 14th, 7:45 in the morning at First Parish. Very similar to the format we did a month or so ago. And Captain Goldman and Fred Ryan will give a very brief presentation with any updates to road closures and the like, and then there'll be a lot more Q&A. A letter went out to residents with CMLP's help. A letter is going out to businesses to collect information for public safety on who needs to be open. But deliveries they might need. The police department has offered up Stephen Hawkins as an officer to help be the direct conduit for businesses that might need a delivery on a Saturday, or, you know, during, you know, obviously parade's not gonna happen, but, you know, helping them figure out when is the best time to get deliveries. There is a lot of communication meetings happening on how we communicate to all the different constituents. So Donna's really taking the lead on residents and working with Mimi and I on how to get the word out to the businesses, get some of that information collected for public safety, as well as when we get the larger map out of when things are gonna start to close. We do know that the municipal parking lots we'll start to have equipment in them as early as the beginning of April so that we can start to set up for the large event. So that will affect our business community, so, we're trying to make as much information final or close to final. Everything's a moving target, you know, unfortunately, so patience is really, the word of our day, but, we do know that there will be an impact to the conference center community, leading up to, those days as well as obviously the day itself. And then we are getting a lot of press. If anybody saw our New York Times article, I've done interviews with BBC, we had NPR Germany, and we are, pitching CBS Sunday Morning came to us, and hopefully they are gonna film in March, and release a segment in April. We have a large spread in the Boston Globe Ideas section. They're doing a section for 250 on April 6th, that we will have a 2-page spread between Concord, Lexington, and Merrimack Valley. So we'll have a really nice presence there, and if we're lucky, the CBS Sunday Morning will air them as well. Obviously with press, you never know, they're gonna take our pitches, but we do have a volunteer on the communications committee, Brian Farber, that's really been helping sort of organize interviews. So when he gets requests for interviews or filming, Donna and I meet, we figure out if they need a permit, if they need to interview a committee member, business owner. So pretty full steam ahead, and it'll be May before we know it.
That meeting was.
March 14th,
14th.
Friday morning, 7:45 in the morning.
AM, there was somebody that showed up at PM.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's in the morning.
And it will be recorded, and MTV will be there, so same thing as last time. It's going out to the chamber newsletter, it's going out to business partnership, it's going out to, in the newsletters, and will be recorded for sharing after.
Fabulous, great update. Mimi, oh, sorry.
And just, Beth, you reminded me, so I think it was announced maybe a month or so ago that, you know, the Healy administration is going to be no longer using the Best Western.
Mhm.
I don't know when that comes up, but I'm just thinking that, you know, with hospitality being at a premium in our town, you know, is there any thing we can do as a town to make that sort of Best Western 2.0, if you will, the next reiteration of that, as sort of effective and, you know, helpful for the Concord community, particularly in regard to serving tourists and sort of, you know, being a vibrant, you know, place to stay.
I mean, having more hotel rooms would be a benefit, period, end discussion, you know, but it depends what happens with that property. Once the state is no longer using it,
But their use of it isn't over.
no. I
But
don't know
think
that
it's
they've,
over
Maybe it's
within a
August.
year.
I think it's,
Yeah.
I wanna say summer,
Yeah, late summer.
late summer, August or something.
Late summer.
but
August 31st.
There you go.
So that building, if folks have read the bridge, has got some significant issues, so
Yeah.
I think it's not just a matter of cleaning up a little bit, it's gonna be a
Yeah,
redevelopment project
I think so
at the least.
Yeah,
That might be a knockdown, you know.
yeah, I mean, our occupancy, you know, is strong in the two properties that we have, plus the inn, but they also have occupancy for April 18th and 19th.
Really, there's vacancy, or
Yeah.
there's.
there's
The vacancies at the Marriott.
The Marriott has a lot of
That's a
vacancies,
How many rooms are there?
150.
Yeah.
They have 40 something available April
Yeah.
19th, and the Colonial Inn has at least 20 left. So the Colonial Inn, mind you, is doing a 3-night minimum, and it's $500-600 a night, so I think it's cost prohibitive. But even the other hotels in the area, there's occupancy in the Greater Merrimack Valley.
That's a head scratcher.
People are sleeping on couches, I don't know where they're sleeping, all
Are
three
the
of them.
rates, are the rates up in all of them, or?
Not all of them, I mean, a lot of the rates go up because marathon weekend and school vacation week,
Sure.
so their rates go up in general. But like Woburn, Burlington, their rates are pretty average right now. And they're fuller, I would think that they're right now, but
That surprised me that there were so many rooms at the Marriott.
Very surprising.
and the Residence Inn is a shuttle destination as well,
Yeah,
so Baker Ave is a shuttle destination.
thank you, Beth. Mimi?
Alright, the food safety program is wrapping up, our last of the 3 food safety trainings our next week. We'll have, by the time we're done, we'll have 80 people who are ServSafe Manager certified and allergen awareness certification certified. What's key about this, and so the attendees have been food businesses and organizations, sort of like the Masons, First Parish, that serve food to the public on a regular basis. The new food code that's going to be implemented requires, the old one said you just needed somebody on staff that was certified. The new food code says that there has to be somebody certified on site anytime you're open. So it's been great. We've been able to allow businesses, basically as many people from their staff that wanted to come are showing up. And the test isn't easy. It's pretty rare that anybody gets 100%. And Concord, out of one of them, there was 28 people took the test, 24 people passed. So we've been able to help people come back and retest, which is good.
When is the last one?
The last one's on Tuesday. So it's a full day training at the library, then the test for one certification, and then the other certification they do at home online. And then as part of that, we're distributing 14 grants to Concord businesses. So that's two different models. One is a $3,000 grant to farm stands. So one of the challenges for the farm stands is that they don't generate a lot of revenue. And they are sometimes selling food that needs to be treated. Normally, if you sell whole uncut produce, you don't need to have it refrigerated. But if you're selling meat and cheese or your apple cider, it needs to be in a commercial grade fridge. And this will help any of the farm stands that wanted to apply, receive the grant, 100% of them. And they're gonna be getting really nice display fridges. And those are, often $3,000 to $4,000 for a refrigerator. So that's really exciting. And then the other businesses are set up to be able to do mobile food vending. So a number of the businesses like Fiorella's, Camellas, have gotten Haute Coffee mobile displays so that they'll be able to take part in the 250th. So it's really great. And they'll be scaled up to do other events. The Benches program, that was the grant that we got from, I got from Mass Office of Travel and Tourism. The benches are not quite in this building, but they're in Concord, being assembled as we speak. And as soon as the ground is warm enough, they're gonna start going into place. The select board just approved all those sites this past week. I'm working with the Concord Cultural Council to start a program called Third Thursdays. So working with all of the business in Concord Center to stay open the third Thursday of every month to at least 8 o'clock. And I've been getting a really great response. So the retailers, some of them might be doing a little something special, but really just being open. A lot of them are closing at 5 o'clock. But places like the liquor store has said that they're gonna do wine tasting. Some of the real estate offices that they're gonna do a meet and greet. Some of the galleries said that they'll do meet the artist. So folks are taking it really creatively. So I'm working with Donna around doing some branding, and then the first one of those is gonna be in May. We'll wait till after the brouhaha. I'll send out to everyone electronically as part of the town's budget book and annual report. I've got my sort of accomplishments from last year and goals for this coming year, so folks might wanna see that. Folks know about the town warrant. There's a few things that are on the radar, and maybe Sven, you want to talk to this. One, out of the health department, the new public health report came out. And just seeing from the food study, like there is an overlap between economic vitality and public health in terms of, if you have a great civic space that's welcoming downtown, not only does it help your retailers, but it also helps mental health. It was part of our age-friendly community. We showed that a lot of seniors actually come to the businesses every single day. And that's part of their social well-being. So it's one of those, as part of economic vitality that overlap. Public Works has got a few things happening, and maybe we can call it Sven. One is the stormwater rates for commercial properties for, I think it might be commercial and residential. Their rates, setting the rates for the sewer improvement fee and the asset management. So Sven, you could speak to all of those much better than I can.
Yeah, so on again on the asset management, which is the roads and pedestrian safety, that it doesn't affect financially the businesses. It just helps getting our roads in proper order and the sidewalks and making some of those things more safe. I think the one that might affect businesses more is the stormwater enterprise fund, which last town meeting, the bylaw was approved. This town meeting, the budget will be up for approval. Public Work asked for a $1 million budget. The rate setting authority is with Public Works Commission. So town meeting will only discuss the budget, but the Public Works Commission will already have a rate hearing before town meeting, and so that citizens know what the rate would be. The rate will be different for residential properties versus commercial or non-residential properties. Will depend on the amount of impervious area a certain lot has. So that will affect definitely businesses that have kind of a huge parking lot. They will probably fall into the higher cost bracket. The effect for overall for Concord is that so far stormwater costs are allocated to the normal tax bill, which is 93% residential. If you do the calculation on the impervious area, the non-residential properties account for 49% of the impervious area in town. So that will shift cost away from the taxpayer and residents to more the non-residential properties in town. Again, and overall, that is out of $1 million budget is $490,000 that are shifted away from the taxpayer or for the residential property owners to commercial property owners. And I think you should have that in mind.
Thank you. Meeting,
That was it.
good, well, thank you very much, a lot going on, that's for sure. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Mary and then Carlin.
Great, thank you, Mike. I'm thinking back to our earlier discussion about the position paper, and I'm thinking a good starting point would be the FinCom report, because the FinCom report does a 5-year projection of what they expect property taxes to be. And I think starting with that and saying how that could be changed if we were to bring any commercial development online, I think that would be a great start. It's a suggestion. It would be a good starting point because everyone's going to get that report, and then we can look at that and say, how could we improve this by bringing in commercial development? That's one point I wanted to make. The other point I wanted to make is earlier, Mark, when we first started talking about this, I think you mentioned that we've got a $370 million capital plan. And I just want to point out that that's a 10-year plan that out of that 370 million, only about 157 would be coming out of the general fund. So I think it's important that we send the right messages to the community as far as what we're planning for future spending. And 157 million would be the general fund for 10 years. It's a plan. And in the last 10 years, we've spent a lot more than 157 million. So I think when we're throwing numbers out, we should be careful.
So Mary, where did the delta, the 210 million come from?
Well, when Anthony showed that slide during the FinCom, it was clear that some of that was going to come from state funding, some of that was coming from grants, some of that was coming from Chapter 90. So you can take a look at the slide. That it was a pie chart, actually, that he put up there. And it clearly marks how much is other sources and how much would come from the general fund. And I just remember, because I'm interested in property taxes, that it was 157 million for general fund. And again, it's a plan. And in the last 10 years, we have spent a lot more. We've spent that and more. So just to keep that in perspective so that we're not alarming people, I would like to just point that out.
Carlin.
Thanks. Carlin Reed, 83 Woods End, member of the Finance Committee, speaking on my own behalf. I'm looking at a 2-page document that will be discussed at tomorrow night's Finance Committee meeting. It is a list of all the warrant articles, all 60 of them. Now, we don't see any text, but we do see the names of them. And I see that your 2 warrant articles are numbers 48 and 49, the accessory retail and industrial and the commercial parking. They're going to be assigned to the planning board. Here's my message. If you want the finance committee to consider articles that are not going to be coming before the finance committee hearing, let us know. Talk to Eric Dahlberg, the chair. So for example, if you think those two will help push commercial development, a theme that the finance committee has been pushing as well, talk to Eric Dahlberg, the chair of the FinCom, about coming to speak. And if nothing else, come tomorrow, we start at 6:30. We're going to do a first pass over the 60 warrant articles. And that list is going to be part of the FinCom packet, which is not yet posted, but it will be posted tomorrow under the Finance Committee webpage. Thanks.
Thank you, Carlin. Stefan?
You mentioned something about a third Thursday opening
Yes.
or encouraging retail to stay open later and starting in May. So that's a seasonal thing or all summer or?
The goal is to do it through the end of December and then to reassess. So I'm asking the businesses to kind of commit to see us through that 7 months and then 7, 8 months, and then we'll see how.
My interest is in counter programming or complementary programming from arts organizations in town, in particular, in my case, the library events. But I'm just wondering if there's a time with, theater events at the Umbrella or 51 Walden, or how that could also be wrapped in.
That's exactly the goal. Right now, the Umbrella already does a lot of their special events on Thursday nights. And the idea is, part of why I call, partnering with the Concord Cultural Council is that we're going to be doing like little pop-up cultural things in the individual businesses. So for example, Camella said that they'd have a small performer there. Main Street's Market would have some music, so that we might have some poetry reading in one spot, so that there'll be like these small scale things all around. And then when the weather gets a little better, we hope to be outside too.
Thank you.
Are there other public comments? Seeing none, I entertain, well, first, perhaps we should set our next meeting before we adjourn. I think the 19th, is that the day we have that for it? Meeting?
Yep, that would be the third Thursday.
Okay, so 4:30 on the 19th. So having said that, is there now a motion to adjourn? And is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all very much for coming. And we'll see you March 19th.